Every life tells a story, and some stories stay with us long after they end. They remind us of the paths people walk, the choices they make, the dreams they follow, and the legacies they leave behind. Whether their journey was marked by triumph, creativity, hardship, or quiet resilience, each person shapes the world in ways we often don't see until we look back. Today, we take a closer look at one of those lives, to understand who they were, what they stood for, and why their story matters. Ace Frehley's story begins in the Bronx, in a neighborhood that felt more like a crucible than a comfort zone, a place where toughness was a given and dreams were things you chased after school, after work, after you'd survived one more day of the noise and the grit. Born Paul Daniel Frehley in 1951, Ace grew up surrounded by music, but not in the polished, well-funded way people sometimes imagine rock legends to be raised. What he had was a chaotic mix of family members who played instruments, a jumble of records stacked around the house, and a natural instinct for rhythm that seemed to live in him before he even knew what it meant. That environment didn't guide him gently toward music. It shoved him into it. He picked up a guitar not because it was expected, but because it made the most sense in a world that didn't always feel like it did. As a teenager he was restless, drifting in and out of school, carrying that classic Bronx chip on his shoulder, that need to push back against anything that tried to box him in. He hung out with kids who lived just on the edge of trouble and kids who were already over it, but a guitar always felt like a lifeline. He absorbed rock, blues, and whatever raw sound he could get his hands on, shaping a style that wasn't academic or refined but instinctive, explosive, and uniquely his. That rough grounding would eventually become a signature, the loose swagger, the powerful vibrato, the sense that he played not from technique but from a spark that ignited the moment he touched the strings. The early 70s found him searching, working odd jobs, floating through bands, and feeling the pressure of adulthood closing in. That pressure would turn out to be the push he needed. When he answered a newspaper ad from a band looking for a lead guitarist, he walked into an audition that felt as mismatched as possible. Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, and Peter Criss dressed neatly, rehearsing seriously, while Ace showed up wearing mismatched sneakers and carrying an attitude that was equal parts nerves and quiet ambition. But the moment he plugged in his guitar, everything shifted. His playing electrified the room. The other three didn't just hear a guitarist, they heard a missing piece. And just like that, the chemistry was undeniable. Ace Frehley became the final cornerstone of what would become one of the most iconic rock bands in history. With the birth of Kiss, Ace transformed himself into the spaceman, an idea that was both theatrical and deeply connected to who he was as a musician. There was always something cosmic in his approach, something otherworldly in the way he bent notes until they felt like they were pulling away from gravity. His persona wasn't just a mask or a costume, it was an extension of how he saw music, boundless, explosive, unrestrained. And audiences felt that immediately. When Ace stepped on stage, painted silver and black, wearing boots that seemed designed for a planet with less gravity than Earth, he radiated a presence that went beyond performance. His guitar work became one of the pillars of the Kiss sound. His riffs carried a street-born crunch, and his solos shot upward like rockets. Songs such as Shock Me, inspired by a backstage electrical accident that nearly killed him, became defining moments of his musical identity. That track also marked his debut as a lead vocalist, proving he wasn't just a guitarist who stood in front of amplifiers. He was a voice in the band, in both style and spirit. Fans loved him, not because he tried to dominate the spotlight, but because he seemed like the most approachable part of a larger-than-life phenomenon. Ace was the rebel, the dreamer, the guy with a guitar who didn't mind tripping over his own boots as long as his sound reached the back of the stadium. But the success of Kiss came with consequences. Fame hit the band like a meteor, and Ace fell into the gravitational pull of excess, especially alcohol. The wild lifestyle that surrounded the band wasn't just a rumor or an exaggeration, it was a constant presence. The tours were long, the expectations were enormous, and the temptations were endless. Ace struggled privately while the band soared publicly. His playing remained brilliant, but behind the scenes, the pressures and conflicts grew heavier. The growing tension between creative visions, personal habits, and the unforgiving pace of superstardom eventually pushed him to a breaking point. By the early 1980s, Ace stepped away from Kiss, a decision that carried both liberation and loss. Leaving the band that had defined him was not an easy exit. But in that departure, he found a chance to rediscover himself. His solo career kicked off with energy and ambition. His 1978 solo album, released simultaneously with solo albums from each member of Kiss, had already showcased his ability to carry a project on his own. It was raw, melodic, confident, and it became the most successful of the four, a clear sign that his artistic voice resonated on its own terms. Over the following decades, Ace carved out a space as a solo artist, releasing albums that blended hard-hitting riffs with the signature Frehley swagger. Songs like New York Groove became part of the cultural soundtrack. His tone remained unmistakable, that blend of grit and outer space shimmer that no one else could replicate. Fans followed him not just because he was a former member of a legendary band, but because he brought something genuine, something flawed and human and deeply musical. His work carried the scars and triumphs of someone who had lived hard and played harder. The 90s brought a turning point. Kiss reunited in full makeup, and Ace returned to the stage as the Spaceman once more. The tours were massive, nostalgic, and charged with the energy of a band reclaiming its place in rock history. But even with the spectacle, Ace's life remained a balancing act between creativity and self-destruction. He continued to struggle with addiction, and his relationship with the band fluctuated, marked by periods of reconciliation and renewed conflict. Yet through it all, he kept playing. The music was the one constant that never abandoned him. As the years progressed, Ace found a renewed sense of control. He continued releasing solo albums, each one a testament to his persistence and his commitment to the guitar. He became a symbol for countless musicians, not just as a pioneer of hard rock, but as someone who survived the lifestyle that destroys so many. His influence rippled through generations of guitarists, from aspiring kids in garages to established players who openly credited him for shaping their sound. Ace's style wasn't about perfection, it was about feel. It was about bending a note until it cried out, about throwing yourself into a solo like it was a leap into space. That approach made him unforgettable. In October 2025, Ace Frehley passed away at the age of 74. The news struck fans across the world, not just because of the loss of a musical icon, but because Ace represented a piece of rock history that felt eternal. For those who grew up listening to Kiss, Ace was more than a guitarist. He was a gateway to imagination, a reminder that music could be loud, theatrical, rebellious, and still deeply personal. His death spurred tributes from artists across genres, each one reflecting a different part of his legacy. From stadium rockers to bedroom guitarists, people spoke about how Ace changed their understanding of what a guitar could do, how his riffs had shaped their childhoods, their careers, their passions. His bandmates honored him with emotional statements and performances, acknowledging the mark he left not just on their music but on the culture of rock itself. Fans gathered, online and in person, sharing stories, memories, photos, and bootleg recordings. Many talked about how Ace had treated them with genuine kindness during meet and greets, how he'd signed guitars and asked about their lives, how he never seemed bothered by the attention even when he was exhausted. He carried himself with the humility of someone who knew he was lucky to have lived the life he did, and lucky to have so many people care about his work. Ace's legacy is a mix of stardust and streetlight, a collision of cosmic imagery and New York grit. He embodied the idea that you could come from a tough neighborhood, from a world that tried to pull you down, and still explode onto a stage with the confidence of someone born to shine. His persona, his sound and his presence influenced not only rock music but the broader identity of performance in American culture. He showed that authenticity could exist under layers of makeup and under tons of pyrotechnics, that sincerity could live inside spectacle. Even now, his music continues to echo, in the riffs younger players attempt to copy, in the booming arenas where Kiss music still plays, in the playlists of fans who return to his solos again and again. Ace's contributions weren't just technical, they were emotional. He gave people the feeling of escape, of adventure, of possibility. In every soaring bend and every thunderous riff, there was an invitation to something larger than life. Ace Frehley's journey wasn't smooth or easy. It was marked by brilliance, chaos, resilience, and reinvention. But in the end, he left behind something that few musicians ever achieve. Not just a catalog of songs, but a legacy of inspiration. He was the spaceman, the Bronx kid with cosmic dreams, the guitarist who lit up stages and imaginations for over half a century. And even though he is gone, the echo of his guitar still travels, still reaches out, still pulls people into the universe he created. His music continues to orbit the world, carrying his energy, his spirit, and his unmistakable sound into the future. Mikey Rijavec was not your typical social media influencer. He was a soul drawn to the sea, someone whose heart beat in time with the swell of the waves, who found peace and purpose in the simple act of casting a line into open water. He built his identity around vulnerability and solitude, not glitz and glamour, and that is what made him beloved by his audience. Known as the creator of the YouTube channel SD Fish and Sips, Mikey shared his fishing journeys with nearly 20,000 subscribers, people who didn't just watch him catch fish, but who watched him be himself. Curious, hopeful, and deeply connected to nature. From the moment he started, Mikey's style was honest. He didn't pretend to have a massive boat or a crew. He fished from a modest 14-foot solo skiff, a vessel that almost looked like a kayak but had a 6-horsepower outboard engine. It was small, humble, and utterly vulnerable to the vast unpredictability of offshore waters. For Mikey, though, that wasn't a drawback. That was his freedom, to go where few dared, to test his limits, and to share not only the triumphs of a great catch, but also the risk, the quiet moments, and the failures. On November 11, 2025, he set out on what he likely expected to be another routine fishing trip. The sea had been his companion for years, and he knew its mood swings, its hidden currents, and its sudden mercies as well as its punishments. He told his friends he was feeling good that day, optimistic, ready for a challenge. But around mid-afternoon, approximately 8 miles off the coast of Baja California, something went wrong. He radioed for help. "Engine trouble," he said. The words came through with urgency, but then the transmission died. He disappeared. The moment that call ended, a massive search was launched. Boats from local fishermen joined in. The Mexican Navy and Coast Guard joined. The U.S. Coast Guard also responded. Pilots flew overhead. Ground teams scanned the beaches. His family, particularly his brother Gregory, mobilized support through a GoFundMe campaign, calling on every resource they could. They pleaded for support, for prayers, for help, but most of all for answers. Days passed with no sign of him. Then, rescuers found his skiff, capsized and adrift, roughly 5 miles from shore. The small boat lay on its side, inert. Strikingly, the 6-horsepower engine was missing. That detail haunted everyone. How does a motor just vanish? Was it ripped off during a capsize? Did something more sinister happen? The mystery hung heavy. Without the engine, the solo skiff was powerless. It was just a shell in the open water, a vessel that once carried Mikey's dreams now silently drifting. As the search dragged on, theories swirled. His close friend, podcaster Phil Friedman, described Mikey as the kind of person who pushes the envelope. He said anything could have happened: mechanical failure, a freak accident, or even a sudden encounter with marine wildlife. Whale, shark. No suggestion was too wild because, as Friedman said, You never know what happens at sea. For many who knew Mikey, that ambiguity was heartbreaking. He was an adventurer, yes, but he was also deeply loved. People prayed for him to have made it ashore, to have somehow survived. Back on shore, the community he built over years of videos watched and waited. Viewers, fellow anglers, neighbors from Ocean Beach in San Diego, they shared posts, reposted his last locations, described his kindness. Some recalled bumping into him at boat launches, how he handed out stickers, how he stopped to chat even when he was heading out again. Others remembered his dreams. He once talked about sailing around the world, meeting people, fishing remote places, carrying his solo skiff on the back of a sailboat. His mission was simple and profound: to spread his positive energy, to make every person he met somehow better for having known him. As the days wore on, tension and sorrow grew. Then on November 16th, rescuers finally recovered his body near San Cristobal, a discovery that, while devastating, brought some closure. When his brother Gregory updated supporters, his words were raw with grief: loss, love, gratitude. He thanked everyone who joined the search, who donated, who prayed. He acknowledged that there would be no easy resolution, but that finding Mikey gave them something to hold on to. In the wake of his death, tributes poured in. Friends spoke of his light-heartedness, his contagious enthusiasm, his genuine warmth. On forums and in comment sections, people said he wasn't just a fisherman. He was a friend, a guide, a reminder that life could be lived for more than success. Some reflected on the danger inherent in what he did: solo fishing in a tiny boat far offshore, without the redundancy of bigger vessels. Others raised questions about safety. Should he have carried a personal locator beacon, an APIRB, or a registered emergency position device? Would things have been different if he had? Mikey's legacy isn't defined by the tragedy, though. It's defined by the way he fished, the way he shared, and the way he inspired. Videos remain on his YouTube channel, filled with laughter, big catches, long sunsets, and the hum of a small motor gently pushing him into the horizon. Viewers return to them not just to see the fish, but to remember someone who loved life simply and fiercely. He taught people that having a platform doesn't always mean being loud. Sometimes the most powerful messages come from quiet places. He lived his passion unapologetically, not for fame, but for connection, with nature, with others, and with himself. He showed that adventure doesn't require a superyacht or a crew. Sometimes it just requires courage, a small boat, and enough optimism to send a heartfelt mayday when things go wrong. Though he is gone, his influence persists. Anglers talk about him still. Young fishermen watch his old footage. People talk about doubling up on safety gear on small skiff. His story has become a somber but important reminder. The sea is as beautiful as it is unforgiving, and the risks we take to follow our passions can be immense. Mikey Rijavec's life may have ended too soon, but the ripples he created will last far longer than any tide. He swung his paddle, he cast his line, he lived by his own code, and he reminded all of us that the most meaningful adventures are the ones we are brave enough to live, even when we know we might not come back the same. Alice Wong's story is one of determination, courage, and a lifelong fight to change the way the world treats people with disabilities. Born with spinal muscular atrophy, she grew up knowing that her life would always include medical equipment, physical challenges, and barriers that most people never even have to think about. But rather than letting those barriers define her, Alice transformed them into fuel. She learned early that independence is not something given. It is something demanded, often loudly, in a society that isn't built for disabled people. That realization shaped her into a fierce advocate long before she became nationally recognized. As she pursued her education, Alice's curiosity and intellect pushed her into sociology and disability studies, subjects that sharpened her understanding of how systems fail people like her. She became deeply invested in policy work, recognizing that true change required more than inspirational stories. It needed pressure, activism, and a willingness to speak truths that made institutions uncomfortable. Her voice was fearless, sharp, often confrontational in the best possible way. People listened not because she was polite, but because she was right. In 2014, she founded the Disability Visibility Project, a community-driven effort to document and amplify the experiences of disabled people. It wasn't just a podcast or a social platform, it became a cultural archive, a place where disabled people finally had a space to tell their stories without filters, pity, or condescension. Through interviews, essays, and public discussions, Alice created a growing network that challenged stereotypes and exposed barriers that outsiders rarely noticed. She understood better than anyone that visibility itself is power, and she made it her mission to give that power to as many people as possible. Her activism wasn't limited to storytelling. Alice advised policymakers, spoke at national events, and pushed relentlessly for better healthcare access, disability rights regulations, and a more inclusive future. She worked from her home in San Francisco, often using a ventilator, speaking through adaptive technology, and showing by example that disability has never been a limitation on intellect, influence, or originality. She also embraced humor and pop culture, weaving them into her advocacy in a way that made her work feel alive and accessible. No matter how serious the topic, she carried a voice that felt human, warm, and unmistakably hers. Alice also wrote extensively, producing essays, commentary, and books that explored the emotional landscape of disability, the joy, frustration, fear, pride, and resilience that come with navigating a world that wasn't designed for you. Her writing was honest and often raw, confronting complex truths about inequality, ableism, and the physical realities of her daily life. She never softened those truths to make them easier for non-disabled audiences. Instead, she invited people to step into her world and understand it as it is, not as they imagined it. As her health grew more fragile, Alice continued working, speaking, writing, and organizing right up until the end. On November 15, 2025, she passed away in San Francisco at the age of 51 following a sudden infection. The news brought an outpouring of grief from activists, writers, academics, and ordinary disabled people who saw her not just as a leader, but as a friend and a voice they trusted. Tributes described her as a force of nature, someone who refused to be limited by her body, by society's expectations, or by systems that were not built for her. Alice Wong leaves behind a legacy that is still unfolding. Her ideas changed conversations about disability across the United States. Her writing continues to be taught, shared, and quoted. And her Disability Visibility Project remains a living archive of voices that will continue growing for years. She showed that disability is not a story of tragedy but a story of culture, community, identity, and power. Her life reminds us that one determined voice can reshape the landscape for millions, and that visibility, once claimed, can never be taken away. Every story leaves an imprint, and the one you just heard is no exception. Lives like these remind us how fragile, powerful, and meaningful a single human journey can be. Their impact doesn't end with their final chapter. It continues in memories, in lessons, and in the way their presence shaped others. Thank you for taking the time to reflect on this life. If their story moved you, inspired you, or made you think, then it lives on a little longer.